Because I know there are a lot of stands in that area. Why Kazakhstan as opposed to Kyrgyzstan as opposed to the others? What drew you to that
Okay.
particular country?
So first, let's talk about how I learned about these countries, how I discovered these countries.
Mhm.
What I wanted to do as a rite of passage was visit all those countries, the ones, especially the ones you visited in your Jamaican and China blog, because
Okay.
to me that was very, very inspiring. I thought that was
Mhm.
so amazing
Cool.
when I saw all of your posts about your experiences and how people reacted when they saw you. And
Mhm.
I remember you said you was, I don't remember the exact ones, but I think you was in Laos or you was in
Mhm.
Cambodia
Okay.
and you tried to cross the border and you said how they were so shocked because you were the first Jamaican
Right. All right. Yeah.
and you went through and crossing the border because in my head I was thinking I would be so scared and terrified. What would they think? Would they throw me in prison? So I wanted to emulate
Right.
that
Right.
experience.
That was
Thing.
Laos. That was Laos. And just as an aside, every time you talk, you bring up some really interesting points, and I want to get you. I don't want to interrupt you, but there are just certain things I want to point out. What you just said in terms of being afraid, that's something I've heard where people have an impression that just by virtue of being a foreigner, just by virtue of being someplace that they shouldn't be, that bad things are going to happen, that they're going to get thrown into jail for,
Yeah.
you know. And I understand it. I understand it, but if you can't have that mentality obviously and be a traveler, and if you find and or a nomad, and if you find you have that mentality, one of the reasons that Ken is doing this interview, one of the reasons that I have my blog is specifically to dispel those fears. It's unfounded that the most of the rest of the world welcomes foreigners, except I guess in war zones. But most of the rest of the world welcomes foreigners, especially foreigners who look different than they are. It's a curiosity. They'll treat you much better than they'll treat their own citizens in those countries. So the fears that people have from whatever single rare experience someone else might have had that you've read about, that's the reason that we do these videos, is sort of dispel that and make and get people more comfortable with the concept of being a fish out of water, if you will. But go ahead, continue.
Yes. So, yeah, I wanted to do something. Okay, for example, let me give a perfect example. I'm from the Bronx,
Mhm.
and the parts of Bronx, South Bronx, where I'm from, is really tough. Like, there's a lot of, crime and et cetera, et cetera. Growing up, I've always been, kind of like physically weak.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Like muscle wise, right? Mhm.
muscle wise, yeah, because
Mhm.
that's just my genetics.
Right.
All the men in my family are skinny like me,
Mhm. Yep.
and their mentality in that particular region of the Bronx is the more muscle you have, the more stronger, the more of a man or whatever you
Right.
are. Okay, I understood. I will never be physically strong like those guys, but I can do something that these people can never do, which would be go to these countries and live to tell the tale. But to me,
Mhm.
that was more powerful than having
Mhm.
big muscles and all that stuff, right?
Mhm.
So I decided I randomly on the map, I took a map. I think it was Google Map or maybe I took a physical map and I said, where could I go that there's no information, there's no foreigners, there's nothing there where I
That's
can
funny.
go there? And I said, oh, there's Mongolia. But what's this over here? And I see there's Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan. I have no idea what these countries are, or
Mhm.
I didn't even know there were people there. I thought it was just empty countries,
Right.
just names. So I went on YouTube and I looked up Kyrgyzstan first. Kyrgyzstan, when I was researching about these countries and on YouTube, these people to me look super exotic
Mhm.
because they look Mongolian. I didn't know what language they spoke. but it was something I never heard of. It wasn't like Chinese, it wasn't
Hmm.
Spanish or anything you've ever heard of, and they were Muslims. So I said, I'm going to go there. That's where I'm going to go. That's my first place. So I did this without thinking, without uh I reacted without thinking. I just bought a ticket and that was it.
Hmm.
I didn't stop. I didn't think because if I knew that if I started to think about it, I'm going to have doubts. I'm going to regret.
Right.
No,
Right.
maybe I shouldn't do it. And then I would cancel and not go.
Hmm.
So I just I bought the ticket and I just forgot about it on purpose. And then the day of when I went to the airport, JFK, to
Hmm.
fly to go out, um, that's when the doubts are kicking in.
Okay.
But in my head, I said, nope, I'm not thinking about it. I'm just going to enjoy the ride. I tried to find things to enjoy, like the plane food.
Hmm. Right.
I tried to think positive, like, oh, if I go on the plane, I could look at the nice looking stewardess
Hmm.
women on the plane. So I went. Uh, I don't remember the name of the airline. I think it was Russia Floats, or I don't remember, but
Okay.
it went to Moscow first, and
Hmm.
then it flew to Bishkek, to the capital, Kyrgyzstan.
Okay.
And when I got off that plane, that's I was so scared. I was like, oh no, the immigration. It's what are they going to think? How are they going
Mm.
to react? Blah 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 blah. But it was no problem. I went
Right.
in. You know, the man. Uh, he said tourist. I said yes, tourist. He
Right.
stamped it, and I just went
Yep.
in.
Let me,
And
yeah, go ahead. Go ahead. So two things. One, again, people have a fear that something bad is going to happen. Just I don't know why. Just because they're don't feel they're welcome, or just because they're American. Some people have fears that they'll get kidnapped because they're American in a certain place. One of the things that someone asked me, because I jumped from Vietnam to Thailand to Philippines, and a friend actually asked me, or a friend of a friend asked, aren't you afraid of jumping around to all these different countries? And her implication, she was implying that being a single guy going from country to country, that somehow I might fit a profile of being a drug runner or something like that, and get into trouble. And it's something I've never thought about, but I can understand her concerns. But my thing is, when you land in a country, if your visa is in order and your passport is in order, and if the country, let's say, requires a certain amount of money for you to prove that you can survive, this is going to sound a bit odd, and I know that the immigration agents have the authority to stop you, from entering, but they I'm going to say it this way: they have to let you in. If your passport is in order, if you have the visa correct, if you have the money, there's no reason for them to stop you from coming in. They have to let you in. You are legally allowed to enter. Now, I'm not an immigration agent, and I'm sure they may have grounds for suspicion. Maybe you fit a profile and they can detain you, but it's not something I worry about, because my paperwork is in order. My passport is a real passport, and you go anywhere, and you get let in. But anyway, go ahead. I digress.
Well, actually, I do have an answer to that question about why some people might be afraid. A lot of it has to, well, I could say as an American, a lot of it has to do with Hollywood.
Okay.
A lot of it is propaganda because especially when I was growing up,
Mm-hmm.
we are taught, how to say, we're basically taught to believe that nowhere else on earth is safe like in the USA.
Mm-hmm.
So if you think about going to country wherever, it's like some poor, rundown country somewhere, and
Mm-hmm.
if they know you're American, they're just going to attack you because the movies we see, the films, when
Mm-hmm.
foreigners come into America, they tell us bad stories about their homeland, which isn't true. So all of this stuff we're intaking, and then we just naturally associate, we compartmentalize these
Mm-hmm.
places as super war zone dangerous or something like that.
Right, right, right.
Oh,
That's something I didn't experience, even though I did spend a part of my youth in the States. My formative years were in Jamaica, so I didn't have that sort of indoctrination in terms of fearing other countries. In fact, we have nice opinion in Jamaica. We have good relations with Cuba. So it's not. Yeah.
and also
Mhm.
another thing I want to add, I don't know about news in many other countries, but in USA,
Mhm.
most of our news is always negative.
Right, right,
Someone was robbed, someone was attacked, a crime happened. It's always, always, always negative. So I guess from this, people would automatically associate that if you go to
right.
someplace else, it's going to be even worse
Mhm.
because maybe they're poor, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So when I came to the border guard, I remember well because
Mhm.
there was a really attractive looking woman, like
Mhm.
immigration woman, and she just looked at the passport. She looked and did something on the screen. She said, tourist. I said, yes. Stamp. That was it.
Mhm.
No problem. And I came in and you had some people there asking for taxi. I said,
Mhm.
no. And that was it. No problem. Nobody touched me. Nobody was aggressive or rude
Right,
or
right, right,
to
right,
beat me
right.
up or try to take my bag. Nothing happened. It was perfectly normal and fine.